It's a weird aura around the Tigers right now because they've done well. They're at the top of the division, but because they've been scuffling lately, we're feeling a little bit down, and now they're getting chased here by a Guardians team that's pretty hot.
Well, Hinch is great at the press, and he always wants to keep the even keel, and he says you play your best game, you're going to probably not win, and they just have not, in one way or another, been playing their best game, and I'm sure they're working a ton about it behind the scenes, but the biggest thing when you go into a losing streak like this, he says everybody tries to win it with this next pitch, and that's so true. You're trying to carry the weight of everything by yourself, and it's got to be a team effort, but it's a mindset that you almost can't help get into once you start struggling, so and Cleveland got hot. They're what were we, 13-14 up, and now we're 5, I think. Yesterday was a good game. Finally, that was good to see. Now they're at the White Sox for the 3 games, and a weaker team. But like we were saying, you don't play a good game, weak teams can beat you, and that's what's been happening. We
saw that in the Twins series because exactly. That's a decimated Twins team. They traded away a lot of their key players. They're missing their best player.
Their bullpen was gone.
They traded away a couple key pieces as far as bats go, and then obviously Buxton's not in there too. So between all of that, those were supposed to be kind of, as far as chalk goes, easy wins, and then it didn't end up.
You'd think, they got this.
Exactly,
and it turns out, wait a minute.
Yeah, and like you said, you got it. Baseball is so interesting to me because there's so much nuance to it, and it seems fairly simple on the whole and on the surface, but there's so much nuance and guys trying to wear the same socks and use somebody else's bat and all those things. And some people could look at those as silly, but it is a lot about just those small little margins that happen in the game. Is my swing just right? Do I need to alter that? Am I hitting the edge of the zone as a pitcher? And if you're not doing that, and if you're missing by just a little bit because you're off in any way, you're a little bit hurt, you're a little bit down, you're not on the right roll, then you can have what happened here. And as we talked about in the last break, they can't stay healthy, and that's not helping. Nobody likes to go to the injury thing, but it's hurt their flow, and especially with the pitching staff, they've had to cobble this together. I'm curious how that's going to go. I like the veteran pitchers that they brought in. What did you think of the deadline? We haven't talked since the deadline. Did you like the moves there, or would you have liked them to do more?
Well, I mean, everybody's armchair quarterback when you got these kind of things, and I woulda. If it were me, I woulda. Well, Harris is not a stupid guy. Did he do right? We'll see. But he did not give up any of the top prospects for what they got. So that's it. He gave away, I don't know to call them fringe players, but, they were not towards the top of their pecking order, and so that's a good thing. It's just a matter of these guys that they did get coming in and performing. They've got a record of bringing, especially pitchers in, and kind of turning them around. Strike zone, pound the strike zone, control the strike zone, and they have a record of doing that. So let's see what they can do to help these guys that might be a little bit struggling coming in. And it's not going to happen in a minute. It's going to be a process, but Cleveland's coming up on us just like we came up on Minnesota last year, and they know, but they're still trying.
It's a little different to be the hunted rather than the hunters, and they're having to deal with that this year, and that'll be interesting. I do like the moves. I had an interesting conversation. We did a live remote from the ballpark, from the Whitecaps ballpark last week, and we were able to sit with Jim Jarecki, who's a friend of ours, and I thought he had some interesting points because obviously he's a believer in the system. He's part of the system. He's a main cog in the Whitecaps, and he sees all these guys pass through, but he likes that they're doing the young core thing and then building from there. And I typically like that in a sports team mold where you do the young core and then layer in veterans. And I think that's what the Tigers are doing because we talk about this stuff that's going to be a year or two down the road, but you got Scooble, you got other guys that you're going to have to pay if you want to retain them. And I mean, I think Scooble is worth paying. Like you're saying, Mike, it's a good point that like it's easy to spend somebody else's money. Somebody's got to pay for him if they are going to keep him. But if there's a star pitcher that you want to keep, I feel like it's in the mold of a Scooble, where I don't think the money is going to go to his head. I don't think the performance is going to go down. His health has been pretty good overall, but you're going to have to pay some of those guys. So you're not signing a lot of these other guys or picking up big contracts so that you can hopefully spend that internally, maybe.
Yeah. And another point that you just talking about that just reminded me of, didn't give up any top prospects, but I hate the rental players. You know, you get the maybe the big stud for half the year, and you might have to give up something pretty valuable to get them, and you hope that you can sign them past this year. But I don't know what the percentages are. Half the time, less than half, more than half, that they actually stay with the team. I don't know, but it could be a really good prospect wasted just for a few months, and it may or may not work out.
I'm right there with you. I like Eugenio Suarez. I was a fan of him when he was on the team. I'm impressed to see what he's done after being on the Tigers. He's had a great career, a surprising career. I don't think a lot of us saw him being this kind of power hitter with other teams like he has been, but I wouldn't have wanted to give up anybody significant, because especially if teams, I heard a lot of teams going, okay, we want a top 5 guy in your system. Well, a top 5 guy in the Tigers system is a lot different than a top 5 guy in some of the systems that are a little bit more cleared out, like the Yankees or what have you. So you're giving up a top 5 guy. That's a top 50 prospect in all of the major leagues.
Yeah. Yeah, and you got the big 3 from the Whitecaps that went up. They lasted with the Whitecaps longer than I expected, but they finally all got called up. 3 of them: McGonigal, Max Clark, and how do you say
Briseño?
Thank you.
Yeah,
I always screw up his name, but those 3 went all together to Erie, and from all accounts, they're doing well. They're not major league ready yet, but they're working their way through. And I would have hated to give up one of those for a possible, something that may or may not work out.
You're talking about 3 guys that are basically in the top 10 in a lot of rankings there. And I'm 100% with you. I think everybody in the system feels that way. We talk with a lot of folks. We're going to talk with one of them, Joe Rampy of the Tigers minor league report, probably at 8:00 here. But we talked to a lot of those folks. I talked to Jim at the game. I talked to Greg Gagne regularly, a lot of people in the system, and they all say the same things. And yeah, I wouldn't want to trade that either. The Tigers are close this year. Are they odds-on favorites to win the World Series? No, probably not. There's some tough teams out there, but they've got a shot. If they get hot, they're cool right now, but they could heat back up. And the future arc still looks very good with all these people in the system.
The big 3 left Whitecaps, and they're still rolling. They're having a heck of a year. Probably one of the best in their history. So, whoever they got to plug into those 3 places, they're performing, and they're learning. All those kids at that age are just trying to figure it out a little bit, but they're actually performing.
That's exactly what Jim was saying at the game, and we saw that there too. So it's interesting stuff. I'm excited to follow them. Come back here with Mike Boruta in studio, MLB. Always like to get him talking on the show. Usually it's more in the form of questions during the Tigers interviews and whenever he wants to jump in, but he's one of the hosts here at Jethro. He does the Polka Pop stuff. He was on tour for the Polka Pop, so that's why we had to fill in at the Whitecaps and give people the B options. Well, I won't call Steve a B option. I was a B option.
Oh,
but,
I would.
sorry, Mr. Project over there.
If he's listening, he's smiling.
Yeah, we love him. We love him. It was fun at the ballpark, and it was a good time there. But yeah, it's interesting to talk about this team because there's so much to talk about. I mean, we spend a lot of time on one NFL game every week. I do basically 3 segments on one NFL game. Granted, it's from different perspectives, and I think that's interesting to gather these other perspectives. But we get 5 or 6 baseball games in a week and then have one segment on it. So it's nice to kind of catch up on it more in depth. But I'm wondering what you think is kind of the key down the stretch here to get them back into form. They've had some injuries. They've got the new players that have got to assimilate here. But what else do they need to do down the stretch? Obviously, you're not going to have a lot of player movement. You might call a person up here and there, but it's going to be the existing players, hoping to keep them healthy for the stretch run and hoping to get that momentum, because it matters when you play these teams. They're going through a down stretch here, but if they can get hot at the right time, I do think they can win the World Series. No, don't read that as they're favored to win the World Series, but they're probably one of 6 or 8 teams that if they got hot enough, they could do it.
Last year, the pitching chaos thing that everybody I thought it was nuts when they first started doing that, when they went on their run. I always thought of do a bullpen game, and that's waving the white flag, and we give this one up. We'll get to tomorrow to a starter. Didn't work out that way, and they used that all the way to the end, and it worked great. And Hinch said, there's nothing to say that we're not going to do some kind of form of that going out of here, even though they got their 4 or 5 starters listed, but some of them maybe not performing so well, and they might turn to some kind of a odd type of lineup, odd type of pitching rotation, just to keep the other team. I mean, that's what it did. It kept the other team totally off balance, and they just need to do something. But at the bottom of it, like I said earlier, Hinch says we just have to work on a lot of stuff, but we have to perform. And nobody has to do it by themselves. In a game like yesterday, I'm hoping, you always hope, they were clicking pretty well. It doesn't take much more than that sometimes to get a team turned around and make them realize they don't have to do it by themselves.
I agree with you. I think that weekend series as a whole, when you add in Veerling's home run and then having the first comfortable game in a while, because they've been playing from behind almost every game. Yeah, they've pulled a few of them out, but it's tough to be clawing back. And they talk about this. They do a good job talking about this on the broadcast, how they like to put pressure on other teams. They like to burn into the bullpen early in the series and be aggressive with things. And now that's happening to them. And I think we're starting to see that. The one thing that I'm curious about is with these new pieces, yes, they didn't go spending and they didn't get any of the big names, but I do think they right-sized the different units to a degree. So I'm curious to see with Morton and Paddock at the back end of the rotation, and then moving some of those guys that were maybe borderline starters, the Monteros and the Meltons of the world that are they're coming up, but now they can be weapons out of the bullpen here. And then you can take a little heat off of the bullpen in addition to adding guys like Finnegan and other pieces in there, because I just think that pitching chaos and some of the other stuff going on, I think some of these guys are a little tired. I know this is another excuse that they don't like to use, and they wouldn't use it, but I do think that usage is an issue for guys like Tyler Holton and some of the other guys. I think I'm seeing it in Flaherty a little bit. I don't know what's going on there. He's been better lately, but obviously the World Series run. Yep. But some of the bullpen guys, they have been used a lot, and to not force them into action quite as much is probably going to be good for the stretch run.
Yeah, their pitching staff, coaches, Fetter, and there's a couple, I think there's 3 of them.
Lund, yeah.
But yeah, and they seem to work miracles to so many players. So, those fringe pitchers that we got at the deadline, you can bet that they're working every day, tweaking this, that, and the other thing. I mean, we have scouts, but other teams have scouts too. And they know what, for instance, on all our hitters, what they do, what they can't do, how to pitch them. You have to adjust. And over a course of a season, when we're 2/3 of the way through ish, something like that. And teams catch on. And same thing we're doing to every other team, they're doing to us. And that's why these guys are so good, is they're able to adjust.
There's a lot of tape out there now. I know they had because we had a good conversation with one of the guys from Tigers Minor League Report about scouting and how the Tigers are doing a little bit of a combination of things where they are actually sending people out to meet people, because I do think that's an important element of the game, that as we digitize the world, we get further away from, okay, let me look somebody in the eye. Let me get a sense for their character, sense for how hard they're going to work. And so they are doing that. But at the same time, now there's a lot of tape for all these guys, whether it's high school players, college players, especially in the pros. There's so many different angles. And yeah, one little thing makes me think of Riley Green, how he's struggling a little bit right now. And they're clearly pitching him a certain way.
Sure.
And he's having a hard time adjusting to that. He's one of the better young players in baseball, but even he can struggle, and he's now got to make an adjustment because they've adjusted to him.
And he had a good game yesterday. So again, a good game can maybe clear your head a little bit, get back to what you know you can do, and just adjust your approach just a little bit. You can hope, it's not just automatic, but hopefully a good game like that for him. I think Carpenter had another dinger yesterday, so, keep him hot. Yeah, it's a day-to-day thing, and they work every day on this stuff.
They do. And Carpenter splits, I've got to look those up at some point, because not that it's all about one guy, but the ability to put him in the lineup, their record goes way up when they have access to him, because it's such an essential piece to what Hinch is trying to do with switching guys around. And that was a great example of that when we saw that over the weekend. And we'll have a chance to see that hopefully down the stretch, with even Jahmai Jones is kind of factoring into this. Ibanez is back up. That's been good. Perez has been great. He started a little late, but having that switch hitter, Hinch would like more switch hitters in the lineup. There's no chance to do that at this point. But like you said, they're working every day, and I'm hoping that we'll look back at that Vierling home run and this weekend series and say, okay, this is where they turned it around, and now in a week or two they're 8 games up on the Guardians or something like that.
And they're playing the White Sox right now, and I'm looking at it. They got 2 on and 1 out in the second. Chicago's not a good team, across the board. They're a lower tier team, but like Hinch says, you don't play a decent game against any team in this league, you're going to lose. And they've been doing that. We talked about that a little while ago, so I'm waiting to see them score a run and go up, but it hasn't happened yet.
Hopefully we'll get an update. We've got an hour's worth of show left, so hopefully we'll be able to update that score as we go on. We'll talk to Joe Rampy next and talk some more baseball that hopefully MLB will be involved with. But I'm glad we could get MLB on the show. He always does a good job producing, and he loves talking baseball. But he also hosts another show on the station, so we got to talk about that. We got to plug the Polka Pops here.
The Polka Pops, yeah, it's been around since 1948, in different formats, but we're still keeping it going here, and it's on from noon to 3 every Saturday and Sunday, and then we have another show that comes right after it both days called Polka Overtime, and so you can get 4 hours of your polka fix every weekend. And if anybody out there that wasn't aware, now you are. So tune into Jethro on the weekends right after the Sports Project on Saturday morning. It starts at noon, goes till 3.
We'll plug it again at the end of the show, because that's a good show to be able to get on there. And we've got to plug the Sports Project, but Steve Project and I were both at the game filling in for the Polka Pops guys because they were on location, but we were at the Polish night, and that's why we were at the Whitecaps. But it's fun to have the variety on the station as a whole.
Absolutely.
Here.
Oh, by the way, 1-0 Detroit.
Perfect.
So it's going well. It's early, but it's going well.
I think that's because we put Mike on air. Well, I think that's why.
I'm going to take credit for that.
Yeah, I think we played it exactly right. So great segment.
Scott's listening. He's just shaking his head.
This is what we were supposed to do. We were supposed to put MLB on air, and it was a great segment with him.
Sports Intel with Ryan Walsh is brought to you by
Mary Freebed, Collectible Insurance Services, West Michigan Eye Care Associates, Eric Hall Aesthetic and General Dentistry, Calder Financial, Grand Management Group, Encore Business Group, and Rydan Investments.
Sports Intel with Ryan Walsh.
Stay informed and stay vigilant.